Hello, everyone. We are back with another Real Badass Moms in Business interview. And today I'm talking to the fabulous Cortney Whitebay of Hudson Valley Peak Performance. And Cortney is an exercise physiologist by background, but she is now a somatic business coach. And we're going to get into a little bit later, like what exactly that means for you, somatic. But Cortney, thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me. I love this whole idea that you have here of this whole badass woman in business and sharing all the things from everybody's experience. It's really awesome.
All right, Courtney, take us back. Take us back in the day, right? Like where are you? I know, not the whole history, like not when you came out your little baby and you're like, where?
Mm.
But like take us back and tell us a little bit about how you got to where you are now, because you've been in business for over 10 years, which is so awesome. I find that very inspirational because I'm not there yet, right? Love to just hear a little bit of like, hey, how did you get from being right an exercise physiologist to like this badass like somatic business coach that you are now?
Yeah. So the long and the short of, well, first of all, I was pre-med back in grad school and I wanted to do something to help people make them healthier, help them be healthier. And I sort of figured out that my desires of being a mom and my desires of helping people were not necessarily going to marry very well in that type of a field.
Yeah.
But I got really lucky because I was also in a lot of sports and I ended up taking a bunch of classes in the athletic training department. And one of them was exercise physiology, which was like literally my last semester. And all of the science, organic chemistry, physics, math, all of the things, biology, all of it that I didn't get from the little courses, like my brain was not learning. I took like microbiology twice. I thought it was the most fascinating thing in the world. I withdrew one time. I failed miserably the second time. And I was like, all right, I guess this is just not for me. But once I got into the exercise physiology course, I was like, oh, this is why this all makes sense now. Like, this is how it all works. So I actually went to graduate school for that. And lo and behold, I still kind of stuck to the microbiome and like the really nitty gritty cellular level stuff when I could. If I had to like pick a project, I did it on that. And everybody else was like doing it on bicep curls and stuff. And they're like, why would you do that? And I was like, I just find it so fascinating. And finally, the subject that I thought was so cool, I could sink my teeth into and actually understand some of it, working from the top organism, a human, down to the little nitty gritty and see like, okay, here's how these things change.
Yeah.
Um, but the bulk of what exercise physiologists can do out in the wider world tends to be in the medical system. So I did a lot of cardiac stress testing, pulmonary stress testing, pulmonary and cardiac rehab, talk stress management, food and nutrition counseling, but I'm not a dietitian or a nutritionist, so that was like a little bit weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it's not really my purview, but we still had to talk to people about it. So I do like a little bit, but it was terrible. They were like, as long as you eat a lot of whole wheat bread and low fat cheese, you're good. And I was like, there's no vegetables in here. It was bizarre. It was bizarre. And I'll say, like, aside from the fact that as soon as I became a mom, I could no longer afford to work in healthcare. I was going to lose hundreds of dollars every month.
Yeah.
Just working and of course making my day longer and not knowing who my
Yeah.
kid was at the end of the day. I was like, all right, this is dumb. I can't do this. I don't want to do this. It's a
Yeah.
toxic work environment and it's not
Yeah.
going to be good for me or my family.
Yeah.
That's when I started. Well, actually, no, that's when I quit my job. I was like, screw this. I am not doing this. This is ridiculous. Thank you so much, United States. Um, didn't even get FMLA, anything, nothing whatsoever. I was like, this is just ridiculous. So I quit. And after my daughter was about 9, 10 months old, I was completely stir crazy. And
Yeah.
I was like, I did not go to graduate school and college and bust my ass and have migraines for 36 hours in a row that I was talking to while I was sleeping, for not using my brain. Like,
Yeah.
I enjoyed raising my own child, but I also felt stress from not being able to do stuff for me. And I felt like I was withering away. Like, this was
Yeah.
learning, is one of my biggest strengths and skills on, like, the strengths finder test. I'm number one for me as a learner. So to not be out in the world and doing that was driving me crazy. And that's when I
Yeah.
started my business, Hudson Valley Peak Performance, because I live in the beautiful Hudson Valley of New York. And yeah, I started taking on clients and going to networking, and that was 10, 11 years ago. And so I was like 26, 27 at the time. And it was really
Awesome.
kind of weird. I know.
Well, but
I was
it's
a
really interesting because
baby.
you hit on that point. Like I went through this huge fear. I remember when I first got pregnant that pregnancy was going to change me, and I was going to go from someone who loved my work to someone who like didn't want to work, or that like it was going to change me in that fundamental aspect. And then after having my first baby, I realized no, that doesn't really change. And after a while, like my first kid, like he went
Yeah.
to daycare at 3 months, and that was just like way too early. But
Oh
the
yeah.
second one, I recognized exactly that. Like I was staying at home full time with them. And by the time that he was about 10 months old, I was also getting that itch, right? You know, they say the 9 months on, 9 months off. Like I was starting to get that itch to go out and do something and be productive. And that I realized I was so relieved. I was so relieved that
Yeah.
I mean, being a mom changes you in a lot of ways, but it
Yeah.
didn't change the fact that I wanted to work, that I wanted to use my brain, that I wanted to use my superpowers to like
Mm-hmm.
make a positive impact on other people's lives. And that's exactly what drove you to at like 26 years old, right? Like start your own business.
Yeah.
So where did it go from
Well,
there though? Because that's not, I mean, that is still what
yeah.
you're doing, but it's not the same focus as then. How did that evolve?
Yeah. So I started talking about like post physical therapy and post cardiac rehab, and sort of just putting myself out there as like, hey, I'm not a typical personal trainer. I'm somebody who can take into account these other
Yeah.
things that are not going to be taken into account of by
Yeah.
somebody who got their GED in a 12-hour certification or something like that. And so many years went by, and around COVID, I would say around COVID, I started to have a lot of business owners gravitate towards me.
Yeah.
And they were usually moms, sometimes dads, but like usually moms who were owning their own businesses. And they were, in the beginning, they might talk about the mom struggles and things like that, but then it really started to shift, especially with COVID happening. And, one of my clients bought a horse farm, and that was completely like new territory. She just liked
Mhm.
horses and she had the money, so she bought a horse farm. Yay. Very, very smart woman, 2 graduate degrees and all the things, but not in this. So there was like a lot of stuff around that. And like, so it went away from the kids and her to like, how do I run this business? So like, I'm struggling with this. And then, I have restaurateurs, and they're like, oh shit, like, how am I going to make money when there's all of these shipping delays and all the pricing is going up for food and for the things that we wrap the food in, and
Yeah.
people being afraid to come to work, and like all the things, and
Yeah.
then if there was other stuff too. So I was like, huh, that's really interesting. So now, I mean, I always have noticed that obviously, like, we say on yoga, I'm also a certified yoga teacher, that the issues are in the tissues, the psychosomatic,
Yeah.
all the things, right? And this is where the somatic business coaching comes from, because soma, body, right? And so I would have clients who would come to me, and I'd have to figure out how to be really trauma sensitive, because they would come to me and we would release something, and they'd be like, oh my God, this time I was, held at gunpoint, and this is what happened, or this time I was beaten, or I was raped, or is whatever, like heavy stuff
Yeah.
would come out. And I was like, God, I wish I had a degree in therapy. But here's a great therapist if you need
Yeah.
somebody, like I love having those referrals in my pocket, right? Like,
Yeah.
oh, here's somebody you can talk to. I mean, you talk to me about whatever you want, but I'm not a therapist, and I'm just always going to remind you of
Yeah.
that. Um, and so
Ethical
it started,
responsibility.
yeah. So it started to shift away from
Yeah.
that kind of a thing, and kid struggles, and it started to shift into business struggles.
Yeah.
And here I was like going through all of these things and brainstorming and Googling, because this is mostly one-on-ones here. So like I had the time, I could be like, okay, do this exercise, and like, I'm going to look this up. Okay, do this
Yeah.
exercise. I'm going to shout out to my Facebook community and see if there's an answer here. And I started doing that. So it was like a kind of combination between business coaching, consultation, and personal training all at the same time. So It was really, really fun though, because I, one, love the health coaching consultation and
Yeah.
all of that stuff and the personal training. Because if your body and mind are not healthy from a physical level, then your emotional, mental level, your business
Yeah.
level, they're going to be no bueno.
Yeah.
You know, one of my clients is struggling like really bad with hormonal stuff, like that comes up a lot too, like PCOS,
Yeah.
endometriosis, all of those kinds of things, and it throws your temper off, it throws your body off. There's a lot of pain involved,
Yeah.
and back
Energy.
pain, energy. Oh, for sure, energy too.
Yeah. Right,
And
because
then
I
of
did the
course,
hormone balance coaching, so it's like, yeah, I know a lot of these, but it's again, you get in that weird thing, like, oh, I'm not really a dietitian, I'm not a therapist, right? Like, it's all these interesting fine lines, and sometimes I wish, like you, like, because I love that learning and absorbing, and I'm a sponge. I'm like,
yeah,
sometimes I would just keep doing certifications, just so I could help with more and more things. But I realized
huh?
that actually, like, but that dilutes from, like, I mean, it's
It
fine
can,
to combine like what you're doing, right? The same thing, like you're combining a few of your strengths into like this amazing package. I think that's good. But when you're spreading yourself too thin and trying to
Mhm.
do a whole bunch of different things, we end up doing a whole bunch of things like kind of mediocre,
Yeah,
instead of like how you were starting to profile yourself, right? As someone who was like,
right.
post what was it, the
Post physical
physiotherapy,
therapy.
post like cardio, that sort of thing, that like you're really zooming in on like what your specialty is and also what like lights you up. But you're also, and I'm because what I'm doing here is I'm going to fish out all these like these key golden nuggets that I think people may miss along the way, because this is one of my strengths, right?
Yeah,
That you're helping them, you're also pivoting with the needs of your clients, right? So that's how
yeah,
that, when you're like, oh, all of a sudden all these business owners were like coming to me, and how can I combine all of this? You're also keeping your energy in your own business while keeping it relevant for the people that you can serve the best. And I think
yeah.
that's that sweet spot.
Yeah, and it was also kind of like, I had done my time. I had done my decade in healthcare, so to speak. Like, even in my even
Sounds like
though
a
it was
jail
like
sentence.
mostly, I didn't actually work a decade in healthcare, but like, in terms of like that mentality,
Yeah,
I did my time in terms of like I was in my business, like working with that model, so to
yeah,
speak, and those types of people, and then I still have them, like they're
yeah,
still there. But then it was like I did my decade there. That's like your expert zone, right? Like it takes you 10 years, generally speaking, to like become an expert in something.
yeah,
And then it started to shift. So now like that's kind of like autopilot, is like, how do I get people to this place? How do I help them get here?
yeah,
Like those physical things, they're almost autopilot at this point. And now I get to be super nosy into people's businesses. And I love it. I love it. My best friend had a cafe for a few years. COVID did put her under, unfortunately. It's really sad, but also really good for her. And I would like come in after I was done with like my sessions, and I was going to go to yoga, but I had time before my own yoga for me class. And I would come in and I would hang out with her, and she would tell me about her stuff. And I'd be like, well, what about this? Well, what about that? Well, what about this? Like in between eating my egg sandwich she just made me in the back, like I would go there for free egg sandwiches, and she would get like business consulting. And it was like, it was so fun because like, she's my best friend. And so like I could talk to her totally openly, totally freely. And I really feel like actually doing that with her opened up this whole other, because like a year after that, like after starting that with her, is when it really started to come out with other people. And I was like, oh, I'm used to this. I'm good at
yeah,
this. Like,
yeah,
and I love being nosy into it because I love to see what you're doing. I love to see like why your business is what it is. I love to see like what the inner workings are. And like something that's really fascinating to me and also really overwhelming is that you actually can have a business that is just one piece of my own business, but you do that one piece for a whole bunch of people, and that is your actual business, and everything else you have somebody else for. And I'm like, that is fascinating, because I don't know how to split it up and delegate it, but like you can actually
yeah,
just take like social media and have a social media marketer, or like you could have a bookkeeper. Like
yeah.
how do you do that? Like that's an entire business, but like I juggle all those things. So I'm like, I don't know. So it's so much fun for me to like see that and learn about that. And of course I know it's there, but
Yeah, yeah. But
I
this
don't
is,
split it up like that in
I
my
love
own
this.
life. So I'm like, how? How do you do
Well,
that?
it's all a process, right? Like it's all a process, because I can imagine that the women who are watching this, who haven't been in business for 10 years, who don't have like their topic down to the fact that like, oh, it's autopilot and I can create like this other area and this other expertise just by having fun with it. Because I love, love. And I think this is so important. So it's like a golden nugget I'm gonna pull out as well. Like the having fun with your business, making sure that you're still enjoying what you're doing, like, or finding ways to enjoy it more by delegating or by learning something new, right? I think that's such an essential that like I've started seeing the women, like I just literally talked to someone yesterday. I've got this business mastermind going on here locally in Costa Rica. And I just talked to someone who was like so on the point of, she's like, I'm so burnt out on this. I just don't want to do it anymore. And I felt so sad because I was like, she loves what she's doing, but it's just, it's only, the thing was she also needs that stimulus, and like only doing that was sucking her dry. So she needed to add something else. It was really interesting because it wasn't my intention going into this, but by the end of us just like, again, on a friend basis, like babbling back and forth, because she was like, I have no idea what I want to do. And it turned out that she really has a very good idea of what she wanted to do. And she actually had already taken action steps, but she didn't recognize it for herself. Right. So that's one of those things that I love also about having other friends who are in business, or like, and I'm sure you have a coach too, right? Like I know you have a coach, and having a coach, an accountability buddy, or a mastermind to brainstorm with, like someone who has that outsider perspective or who's doing things a little bit differently than you are, right? Like the delegation. I just a year ago, and I didn't feel already, I hired my first assistant, right? And then it was like, crap, what do I tell this person to do? And like, and then I realized what a control freak I was. When you're like, I don't know if I can delegate this to someone else. Are they going to do it as well as I can? But I think that is also one of those signs of growth in a business. It's like being able to let go of the things that maybe you don't enjoy as well or do as well, like the bookkeeping. I mean, you can be as macro. The funny, it's so funny you brought up like microbiology, because I had this with microeconomics. And I was thinking, I was like, there's another really cool lesson right there, because the thing that maybe you drop out of or you fail at first could turn out to be like your greatest passion later on. I thought that was such a cool thing. You never know. Like you never know. The fact that you like it and you're interesting and maybe you don't learn about it well in a particular environment doesn't mean it's not for you. Because if I think about the fact that I hated economics, I hated it. It was my worst grade ever, which was a C in college. Okay. It was my worst grade ever. But it was a C minus.
That's not so bad compared to my W and my F.
No, but like
the same thing.
Me, you know, overachiever. Like it was a horrible.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean,
horrible,
I was other than that, I was like all A's and B's. Like,
well, in my major, you had to have a minimum grade requirement to keep in the major. Otherwise, if you dropped below a certain thing, you weren't allowed to be in there. You had to keep a certain standard. But the funny thing is that economics, right? Like if I'm looking at now, I'm a business coach, and I'm like, a lot of what I do has to do with like money and economics. I have to laugh because it's a similar thing. It wasn't what I was necessarily like good at first glance. But I liked it and I thought it was fascinating. And so coming back to that and trying it again from a different angle, I think that's also one of those important business lessons. Like it's not like, oh, first attempt and you're going to nail it, right? It's more like the fifth or the sixth or sometimes the seventh attempt, and just like keep going, test and tweak.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think like it's also okay not to like something, and there's no, I mean, I feel like there's a lot of stigma around saying, well, I really don't like to do this. And I think especially for moms, and especially for women in business and moms in business, to, you know, we start our business as like a side hustle, a lot of us, and then like that's all it is to anybody except for us usually. You know, to us it's usually like, you know, no, this is like what I want to do.
Although we do tend to keep calling it a side hustle, even though we don't, right? Because, like, even though it's a big thing.
It is a big thing, but I think like if you're home and doing it, like you see, I'm fitting this business around my family and children's needs. And that's why it seems like it's a side hustle, even if like I'm absolutely out earning my husband right now. Absolutely. And
which
historically,
I think is awesome.
And historically, like he always out earned me and looked at me as like, well, how come you're not doing this? How come you're not doing that? And da 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 da. And now I'm like, all right, well, and it's changed over the last 3 years, But historically, like, even if I was out earning him, I was still doing the majority of the housework. Thank God it's not like that anymore.
Right.
I don't know. Like, it took the pandemic and like being home with a newborn and us all being together in the same house for like an entire year for him to actually start meeting me like literally halfway.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm very grateful for that, but
Exactly that. But like the fact that we
also
have to have that intense of an experience just to get someone to meet us halfway. We've been talking about how the shift
yeah,
of paradigm, right? It's been coming up more and more and more conversation. I've been having this shift more towards the female supportive caring paradigm and how we
yeah,
are going to be like revolutionizing business. But
oh
unfortunately,
yeah,
still a lot of the way that like systems are set up, households are set up, like
yeah,
if you're talking about maternity leave and like childcare and all of these sort of things, a lot of the way they're set up, unfortunately, still put us at a disadvantage, which means we
yeah,
just need to not work harder, but we need to work smarter, right? Like even
right,
smarter in our businesses to like, right? If you're talking about like productivity or taking care of yourself, like the other day, like literally, because I talked to someone recently who's like a cycle-based business coach, like I
mm-hmm.
was like, oh, it's the beginning of my cycle. Okay, I'm gonna let myself take a nap at like 10 o'clock in the
Yeah,
morning. And I got up and I was like 10 times more productive after that. Whereas previously
yes,
I would have just tried to push myself through the
power
tiredness
through
and
it,
give myself a pep talk. And now
yep,
instead, like, and I think that's what you're doing, right? With the somatic business coaching. So I want to go into a little bit more about what that looks like and what that means in a moment. Like listening to my body,
mm-hmm.
being kind to myself,
Yeah,
like understanding also that like actually going to the beach and taking a walk is part of my productive workday, whereas before I would feel like so guilty for going and having a chat or a coffee with a friend or going outside and like laying in the sun for 15 minutes. Sometimes
mm-hmm.
I literally plan that into my day and then I
Mm-hmm.
still feel that niggle of guilt, and yet I notice
Yeah,
I do that fact check when I come back. I'm like, am I energized? Am I productive? And I realized that 15-20 minutes, and I know that the last time we talked as well, I was like, okay, I'm going to be 10 minutes later because I need to have my 15 minutes before the sun goes away. And then
yeah,
feeling like weird saying that, but now I'm really getting used to it because I noticed that the prioritizing, the taking care of me and my body, right? That the somatic,
mm-hmm.
has a huge impact on business.
Oh, 100%, 110,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000%. You have no business if you have no body. There is no
Right?
business if you have no body. There isn't. There is nothing. You have nothing. If you have no body, you are no longer here with us. You're somewhere else. And you just sorry.
I like that one. I really like it. I wrote the issues and tissues as well.
Yes.
One of the key
The
takeaways. So I'm
issues
like,
are in the tissue.
no
That's how
body, no body,
no body,
no
no business,
business.
baby. No, it doesn't function that way. It's like saying like, oh, it's just psychosomatic. Oh, it's all in your head. Like whatever. All of those things are just a huge load of bullshit. And I also just want to say permission to not like something
Yeah.
if you don't like it. You just don't like it. That's fine. Hire out for it. Don't let somebody guilt you into feeling like, and this goes like come back into your body when I say that. Like if you don't like something and it is draining your energy, it is making you unproductive. And then you go and tell your husband or you go and tell another colleague or a friend or whoever, and they're like, oh, really? You should probably just do that yourself. Like, no, F that. Like, you don't have to do that yourself. If your body is telling you, like, not necessarily your mind, because your mind can like do all sorts of like jumbo lies and backflips to you, but like if your body is like, no, this is de-energizing, like de-escalating, this is just a suck, right?
Yeah.
Permission to just like hire that shit out, man. Hire it out, have somebody else do it. Maybe it's doing your laundry, maybe it's doing your dishes, maybe it's cleaning your house, maybe it's doing your books or posting on social media, whatever it is. I don't care what it is.
Yeah.
But as long as it doesn't take away the essence of your business by giving it to somebody else, obviously that's not smart. Like just do it, like whatever. And also permission to take care of yourself and not be guilty. And that's really, 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 really hard. But if you think about it, like exactly what you're saying, like you actually, when you go outside and you walk on the beach, you're actually getting negative electrons and positive electrons going in the ways they're supposed to go. Like
Yeah.
you're actually like uploading and downloading into the earth
Yeah.
electrically, like you're electrically recharging your battery.
I
And so,
felt so
yeah, you're
kooky.
going to
One
feel so
time
much better.
I've started getting a few crystals in my collection. And one time I totally made up this mantra. I was like, I breathe in like all the goodness and positive energy and all the things that are coming to me. And I breathe out all the negativity and all the things that are holding
Yes.
me back. And I felt so fucking loopy. And when I told my
So,
husband, he was like, yeah, you're going off the deep end. But I can tell you, I only did that for like 2 minutes at the end of my barefoot, like 20-minute walk. And I was like, I feel better. So what I'm going to do is, and this is the thing I think is so important. And I've only just like, I'm 39 and I'm just starting to do it now, right? So I also think there's no time that's too late to start with this, but the tuning into what my own body needs.
mhm.
Like I did not move to Costa Rica for no reason. Like I moved here for a reason. It's surrounded
Yeah.
by nature. It's close to a blue zone. There are beaches like 10-minute drive away from me. I was like, I'm not going to go weeks at a time without putting my bare feet on the beach. Like
Yeah.
there's a reason why I'm here. And if I'm not doing that, if I'm not taking the time off to enjoy the environment that I'm in, to take off the afternoon and go swimming with my kids, which also energizes, by the way, because then guess what? When I spend all that quality time with my kids, they're a lot nicer to me the next morning when I got to get them ready for school, right? Like
Oh
it's
my
all
God.
just like, again, the positive spiral and feeding. And I think what
Yes.
you're hitting on, which is also core of what I do in my business as well, is that awareness, just increasing that awareness about what you enjoy doing, what gives you energy, what recharge, like your battery, what you like, what you don't like. And I love the word that you're bringing in constantly here, like permission.
Yeah.
We have permission
Yeah.
already.
And
We
I
don't have
know,
to ask
like,
anyone.
right. And I know, like, so for that one, I feel like I like to say it because there's so many of us who haven't had that aha moment yet. And but then there's also like you could get some backlash from it because I'm like some people already know that and they're like, I don't need your permission. And that's cool. Like,
Yeah.
but for the people who don't know that yet,
Yeah.
I'm gonna say it out loud as many times as they need because they're not awake yet.
No.
They're not awake, they're not aware. Like just because you're awake and aware and you're like, don't trample on me, I already know this, I don't need permission from you. Like that's super cool. Like more power to you. But like there are so many people who are not there yet. And I was one of them really not very long ago.
Yeah.
And sometimes I just need to hear like you're allowed to be angry. You are allowed to be overwhelmed. You are allowed to not enjoy that. You are allowed to outsource that. You are allowed to go and take a 3-hour brunch with your friend. You know, like you're allowed to go out for a walk without taking the dogs and the baby. You know, like
Yeah.
you are allowed to do that. And I think if you do that, you're going to find a huge impact on your business as well, because, you know, I actually, there's a business coach that I do a lot of, like, I just come like a fly on the wall with, and I do like all of his like free challenges and things like that. I think he's a great guy, and he has a coach, you know, up the ladder
Yeah.
of coaches here, who told him at one point, there are no business problems. There are actually no business problems. There are you problems that manifest in your business. And I am like, that is so freaking true. And that's why the coaching that I've invested in
Yeah.
is basically like emotion coaching, but she's really business savvy.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I kind of feel like, because for me, that's what I feel like I, in this moment, need the most of. Like, I need this emotional release to
Yeah.
be like, no, I am worthy of this. No, like today I had a session with her and I was like, she's like, she had me tell her like stuff about whatever these things were in different scenarios. Every scenario came back to the root of me doubting myself.
Yeah.
You know, so it was, you know, it was healthcare, it was marriage, it was business, like all different veins, but they all came back to me doubting myself.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay. So we released a lot of stuff around doubt. And it's like the same thing with somatic business coaching. Like people come to me because they're in pain, they're brain fogged up to wazoo, they can't concentrate, they have no energy, they feel sick, they got bad blood work back. Their
Yeah.
doctor's telling them they need to lose weight. They're, you know, not energetic. They don't know where the hell to go or where to start. And they say, hey, help me. I don't know what to do. And we jump in and we get started, and it's never as hard as anybody thinks it is. Everybody's always really scared, but like, that's the whole thing of like meeting where you're at and doing
Yeah.
client-led training is
Yeah.
that I'm not going to make you do 15 burpees and then 25, like, I don't know, kettlebell swings and then run 30 minutes at your top speed. Like, that's not how that works,
No.
you know? So it's like, come in and get your body and your mind set. Like, come in and like re-regulate your physical body. That is going to help to re-regulate your mental, emotional body. And then that is going to help you peel back, like, that's just peeling back so many layers to get to what you need in order to run your business. Because if you're worrying about your blood pressure or your blood
No.
sugar or going on medication, how much time and energy are you spending on that?
Exactly.
Jump in with me, we'll lower those things without medication and go on your merry way. And now we've opened all that up, and now once we've done that, you're like, oh my God, I had this great idea. And I'm like,
Yeah.
yes,
Because you've
what is
cleared
it?
up the mental space. Like we've talked about the,
Yes.
you know, the domain models and how we both have a holistic approach to things,
Mm-hmm.
because it's not the case, like, because I used to do parent coaching and health coaching as well, right? Like if things are
Yeah.
going down, and I have a client who, right, she was going through a separation, her kids were having all these disciplinary issues. And so we just sat down and we had a full on like parent coaching session, because
Mm-hmm.
if that is taking up all your mental space, not
Yeah.
to mention like starting off your day on the wrong foot, like how well do you think you're going to function in your business? Like it's about like exactly that, the alignment and bringing that, your mind, your body, re-regulating your system, figuring out what the hell you want to do. But also I want to
Mm-hmm.
stress, because I thought this was interesting, so I want to come back to it, because you mentioned the people who are maybe like getting a little up in arms because they're like, well, I'm aware, I don't need your permission, right? But then
Yeah,
I think there's a difference between being aware and taking action.
for sure.
And
For
usually the
sure.
people who are getting that reaction, this is the interesting thing, because I used to be one of these people too.
Mm-hmm.
When you have a reaction, it means you're probably not as far as you think you are. And coming from that place of
Right.
like ego and I know it all,
Yeah.
like instead of being open to learning and like, okay, maybe there's a point in that, let me see if I can do things differently.
Mm-hmm.
There is that gap too, right? So I think where all of
Yes.
our clients start off is in that awareness, but then we're there to support them in like actually starting to move, because a lot of people
Yeah.
can stay in awareness, right? Like they say also like when you can't do anything with alcoholic until they realize they have a problem. But even
Yes.
alcoholics who know they have a problem aren't the ones who like per se like solve it or
Mm-hmm.
like stop drinking or change things in their life, right? So the awareness is
They
the
don't really
first step.
care.
Right.
It's so funny you say that, because like, I feel like I've dealt in my life, a lot with alcoholism and drug addiction with friends, family,
Yeah.
whatever. And some of them are like, well, I might want to stop this at some point. And I'm like, okay, cool. Let me know if you need any help. Or like, and other ones who are like, this is who I am. And if you don't like it, you can leave. And like, and then the people who are like, you know what, you're right, I don't really need this, I'm gonna stop, and then they get triggered and then they start again. And it's just like, okay, so this is all like really super duper interesting. But I've taken that, like, you can't help an alcoholic or a drug addict until they've decided that they actually want help, and even then you can only give the wisdom that you
Yeah.
have and hold space for them. You can't actually help them. And I've applied this actually to my business and my practice
Yeah.
as well, because it's the same with exercise and health. Like,
Yeah.
um,
You can
and
coach and give all
I
the
can
practical
coach.
tools so you're blue in the face, but in the end, look, we're only
Yeah.
there for like that 1 hour a week or a couple hours a week, and all the rest of the hours it's up to our clients to actually
Yes.
take that action.
That's why when like my clients will come and say like, oh my God, you helped me so much. You fixed this. Oh my God, you made me walk again. Oh my God, I don't have pain here anymore. You took it away. Thank you so much. You did such a great. I'm like, what are you talking
You're
about?
like,
Like,
turn it back.
I
It's
didn't
you.
do
It's
anything.
you.
Like, you did it. You
Yeah.
did all of that. Like, the reason you're walking without pain is because you did the work. The reason
Yeah.
why you can bend over and pick that up and your back's not going out is because you did the work. Like,
Yep.
I facilitated your learning.
Absolutely.
I did not do that, because now you're saying like, oh, you did this to me. I
And
didn't
then
do
it
jack
takes away their
shit to
power,
you.
right?
And
And
it
their
takes away
confidence.
their power. That's exactly right. Exactly right. And I just, I have a client that I was talking to the other day, and she is definitely a trauma survivor. And we were talking about a very triggering series, which is originally a book, but it's called Maid, MAID, like I Clean Your House Maid. Highly recommend it if you can stomach-ache. But in this, it goes through this woman's like story of abuse and getting out. And at the end, I was like, I was like, the thing is, and it's very well demonstrated in this TV show, whether it's like something you've experienced before or just like maybe the energetically being trapped, like
Yeah.
not like physical abuse, but like energetically feeling trapped. We It demonstrates it so well that it's so easy for us to go and slip back into that place because it's familiar. Like I, as a coach, can energetically, literally, like take your like a, you could go into witness protection.
Yeah.
Like if I'm a witness protection person as a coach or a witness, like we can literally take a person out of the abusive situation or the dangerous situation or the unhealthy situation. We can
Yeah.
move them 3 states away, give them a stipend. And if they haven't done their own inner work,
They're going to end
they're
up in
either,
another situation.
yes, they're either going to actually get their asses up and go back to that place because that's what they knew. And they feel bad. Oh, well, maybe he didn't really mean that. Like, okay.
Yeah.
Or they're going to go find the same negative person
Yeah.
or the
If they
same
didn't break the pattern.
negative food or right. Exactly. So it's like, I can teach, but I can't make you do anything. Like,
Yeah.
all I can do is just hold space for you, and the rest is you, which means the accomplishment is yours, you too.
Yeah. Absolutely. And that's the when we give the power back, because it's not about us at all. And I think that's also, when I was talking about the ego thing, right? Like if you're getting a reaction to something, that's usually our ego trying to keep us like safe or justify like our actions
Yeah.
up until now, because being wrong can be uncomfortable. But like if you're talking about like discomfort, because a lot of the change that we go through, it's uncomfortable at first. Like when you
Oh
start working
yeah.
out and you haven't worked out for a while, like you're gonna have a little like, if not be crippled, because I usually then tend to go all out when I do it and not like have the in between, but like, a little bit of muscle ache or a little bit of
Yeah.
discomfort. Like if you're talking about your business and you're trying a new marketing technique, or you're following up with clients, or you're tuning into your body and you're getting up in the middle of the day and actually eating lunch and going for a walk instead of saying it feels uncomfortable at first, but
Yeah.
the saying as well, like the growth happens outside your comfort zone. So
Mm-hmm.
unless you want to like stay exactly where you are, like either physically in pain or with your business or whatever, like you got to get
Yeah.
up and move and you got to stretch that comfort zone.
Yeah.
And that's you doing it,
Absolutely.
not the coach. And that's the thing that
Right,
bothers me
exactly. Like
sometimes is
I
like,
can totally give you the ideas. Like my
yeah,
my restaurateur, she was like, ah, how am I gonna make this money? I was like, well, like I know you. Our kids go to school together. Like I think you're super awesome and I love your food and like I eat there whenever I can. I bring anybody I can
yeah,
here. And like I was like, and I know that you source as locally as possible or as organically as possible, as fresh as possible. Like when she has fish, it's come in from Boston, like the night
yeah,
before. You know what I mean? She doesn't over order. There's not stuff like sitting in the freezer. If a dish runs out, it runs out and that's it. She doesn't have any more
yeah,
because she's not holding large amounts of food over. And I was like, do you have that written on your website? Do you have that written
exactly that, right?
on your menu? Is it on your menu? Or do you have like a little table card or something like there that it's like right in their face? Do you have it, in your Google profile? Do you
Yeah,
have like, are you consistently posting this in your Instagram,
yeah.
in your TikTok, in your Facebook, whatever you use? And like you have to tell people this because we get a lot of people from New York City and they don't give a shit like how much it costs. Like her local people do, but like her city people definitely don't care.
But they like things being sourced locally.
But
That's
they
the
like
people,
things being so
yeah,
they will actually come to your restaurant specifically, as will I, because I want to try and get the best food into my body even when I'm eating out.
yeah,
Like I will choose a restaurant based on that
yeah,
actually. And
yeah.
I will say like, oh, okay, well, this entree is like, a bit more expensive than I'm used to, but it's locally raised, grass fed and
Yeah.
finished
So
humanely.
again, like this is tuning into your clients, like they're unique. We're supporting them in picking out. This is funnily enough, we were just mentioning this, right? That was something I talked about on Monday. Your unique selling point. Like, how do you set
Mm,
yourself apart from the other 10 restaurants in town? Right? Like,
yeah.
how do you, if you're a business coach, how do you set yourself apart? Like, how are you different from the rest? Right.
Right.
And
Yeah.
and also meeting your clients where they are. Right. Because like with some of
Yeah.
the clients, they're like, yeah, but I already know that. And yes, I have it everywhere on my social media. I talk about it till I'm blue in the face and it doesn't seem to be making the difference. Right. Like, so it's
Hmm.
no, but I'm just saying like a
Yeah. No,
moving
I'm
aspect.
like, that sounds like an energy shift to me. Like that sounds like, it's there, but why aren't people seeing it? And that's
Yeah.
something that's like a thing for me is like, I can say the same thing twice in a row. And if I'm like grumpy when I post it one time and happy when I post it the other time, it's different.
So funny, right?
Mm-hmm.
I love that. All right. So I'm gonna, because I feel like we could babble on for hours. I have this, I feel like all the women that I'm attracting to these interviews, like it's wonderful because there's such a nice personal connection as well. At the same time, I'm aware that people have attention spans, and usually around the 30, 40
Yes.
minute mark, it starts to taper off. So
Same.
with your 10 years of amazing like business experience and all the shifts that you've gone through and all the learning you've gone along, what tips would you give to women who are a little bit earlier in the process than you are? Like, if you're to look back and filter out like your top 2 golden tips for women in business, like what would they be?
So my first one is going to be a result of my like complete emotional breakdown during a mastermind this December, which was awesome. So much fun. But I was in person with everybody, and it was really nice to be able to be supported in that. And that was essentially what their collective agreement was. You need to stop listening to that person, because that person was renting a lot of space in my head. I am very close to them in physical proximity for large amounts of time.
Yeah.
And I am a sharer. Like, I want to talk to people who are
You're
around
talking
me and
about a
close to
physical
me.
person, not like
I'm
another
talking
part
about
of your brain. Sorry, I was just
a
like
physical person, another human being.
Yeah, okay. So
And
if there's someone like who is like sapping your energy or is not believing in you or not backing you 100%, that like find the way to like distance or cut off from that person.
Mm-hmm. And recognize that, like, first of all, you haven't done your own work, because if they're triggering you like that, you haven't done your own work, and you haven't separated their energy from your energy, and that is your work to do.
Yeah.
And I say that because that's my work to do.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, recognizing that they're saying those things that you either feel like they're tearing you down or telling you that's a silly idea, or that's not safe. That's not a safe idea to have, like, because something might happen, you might fail or whatever. That's their baggage. That's their work to do. So there, it's like, it's twofold, like, do you have to cut out? And this is like in my somatic business coaching program, my first month is clearing your sphere of influence. And it's this exact thing. And I teach also what I go through, so like,
but I can tell this because this is one of those signs that you've been working on yourself for a while. It's like, I had an emotional breakdown and it was great. Like,
it's true. It's true. It's so true, because if you're not having the breakdown, you're not having the progress. You have to break down and then get back up again.
Like muscles, when you're training, you have to rip the muscles to build them stronger.
Yes, absolutely. And I would say the second thing is to sink in from your head into your body, wherever it is that you feel stuff, in your heart or in your gut or whatever. And if you have an idea that is like really jazzing you and you're feeling it in your body, like you're feeling the energy in your body, even if it seems weird and crazy and outlandish, and if you tell that naysay person or people, those other physical human beings, that, oh, I got this really cool idea, and that they or other people are gonna be like, that is nuts, so do it anyway. It's probably just that you're ahead of the curve and nobody knows you or your business like you, and stopping that energy and that forward momentum is essentially like not listening to your higher self or your soul. And that's what we're all trying to get to, is like the biggest, best version of ourself, which exists inside of us and outside of us, but we're onions. We got to peel back the layers.
You got to peel those layers. I always think of Shrek. This is the hazard.
So do I.
Right? Like, you're like, and you smell bad. You see? Anyway.
Yeah.
Awesome. So really, like, just like clearing your sphere of influence is what I'm taking out of it, and like thinking from your head into your body, and really like trusting yourself to go with all those like ideas, even if they do seem crazy.
Yeah, or at least writing them down and validating them. Not that you have to do every single one of them, but just like writing them down and validating them and be like, ooh, that would be really cool. Even if you don't take action on it, not passing judgment on it, and therefore passing judgment on yourself. That's what we.
That's a great nuance, because I'm also like, I'm sure many of your clients, like a shiny object person. And if I were
Oh
to
yeah,
follow like
well,
every awesome idea that I had,
for
like I
sure.
probably wouldn't have a business at all. So it's like, great, validate it and also like keep track of it, because those are ideas
Yeah.
when you're getting stumped or you don't have content, or when you do need
Have
to
like
pivot
a
and change directions, like that's where your gold is. Literally that like journal that you were waving around, because that's also part of the process, right? When you write things down, you internalize it better than others. But Cortney, I'm sure we could just keep talking for hours, but I'm going to share how you can find Cortney, how you can find her business coaching, and you can follow her and connect with her, because like Cortney and I connected a few months ago, and I feel like we've just been like more and more in each other's world. And this is one of the things that I'm loving about these interviews, is also just, you know, the sum of the 5 people you surround yourself with. So we're all like helping each other, just be surrounded by more inspiration, more badass women in business. And that's what's going to make us ultimately more successful in life. So thank you so much for coming on today, Cortney. And I'm sure we will talk.
Thanks for
All
having
right.
me.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.